In today's day, what is happening is there's so much of garbage being accumulated, and so much of it is clothes. The fashion houses have to understand that the environment cannot, absolutely cannot cope with the amount of consumption there is. They need to develop some methodology where they can reclaim the clothes which people don't want to wear, sterilize them or clean them up and give it back to people who are less privileged.
And fashion plays a very important role in my life. But do you want to know what my secret is? I have been repurposing my mother's saris. These saris are more than 30 years old, but they're so beautiful and glamorous, and I can repurpose them in so many ways. Well, we live in the world of fast fashion. Everything is so fast. But you know what lasts? Sustainability lasts. And that's why I would say that it's time that we start rethinking of ways of repurposing what we already have. Think of ways of identifying our own styles and identities.
Can fashion make a statement in sustainability? Handmade, artisanal, made to order. Qualities such as these define not only sustainable fashion but haute couture too. High fashion can be sustainable. It stands for slow fashion and is not mass-produced. It uses eco-friendly fabrics, it increasingly prohibits harming animals, and it values vintage. However, the case for the push for more sustainability needs to come now, and more fashion houses are waking up to innovation and ideas which help do so. Nandita Abraham is the Chief Partnership Officer at GUS Global Services, and in this role, she spearheads national and international academic partnerships, strategic alliances, and corporate relations for UPES, Pearl Academy, and other partner institutes. Joanne Hayek, Dubai Institute of Design and Innovation. Joanne is an architect, designer, and coder currently based between Beirut and Dubai. Her work focuses on cross-disciplinary research for the design of sustainable futures. Joanne is a social entrepreneur, a co-founder of Vanina, founder of an open studio, and co-founder of Emerge Beirut. She is also a senior lecturer at the Architecture and Design Department of the American University of Beirut and an adjunct faculty at the Dubai Institute of Design and Innovation. Ingrid Sahu, partner Technoavia Middle East and Africa. Ingrid is an experienced marketing, communications, and general management professional with multi-industry experience, acknowledged for delivering results for business impact in developed and emerging markets across the Middle East, Africa, and Asia Pacific. Ambika Sachin, editor, City Times. Ambika is editor of UAE's largest news organization, Khalij Times' entertainment portal, City Times. Ambika's stint as editor for the lifestyle and entertainment segment has instilled in her a deep-rooted understanding of the city's dynamics and, in particular, how fashion, food, and films form the crux of our global existence today. Be inspired. Festival of Ideas. Can fashion make a statement in sustainability? Nandita Abraham, Joanne Hayek, Ingrid Basu in conversation with Ambika Sachin.
Today I have with me a very eclectic panel who are going to discuss everything from the use of technology when it comes to minimizing your carbon footprint and the emotional connect that we have to a lot of clothes that we wear and how it can actually help us lead a much more fashionably sustainable life. So welcome to the session, everybody. Okay, so I'm just going to ask everybody to kind of introduce themselves.
So my name is Ingrid Sahu. I've been in the corporate world for a very, very long time, 25 plus years, but have always been passionate about craft and fine handcraft. And over the last several years of my corporate life, I kept thinking, how can I use some of the skills and some of the expertise that we develop and use so much in the corporate world to bring structure and help scale the craft world? So with that question in mind, I'm sort of on this journey now to try and bring those two together and identify fine craft persons in different parts of the world, starting with the Indian subcontinent, but then taking it further into the Middle East and beyond.
Me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Joanne Hayek. So I'm an architect, designer, and coder from Beirut, Lebanon. My work is anchored around sustainability and innovation, which I explore through social entrepreneurship and academic research. I co-founded a fashion brand with a friend, through which we explore a variety of concepts for material remediation, giving a second life to materials and products that have been wasted and that are problematic to the environment, usually hard to recycle, and so we turn them into pieces of luxury.
I'm Nandita Abraham. My need, I think, is to have impact, and I do that through working with young people, through sustainability, which is not just about, and we'll discuss it further, but it's also about community, it's also about what are the new things that are happening in the world, what are the trends, and how can we build that into our lives.
Okay, Nandita, I have to start with you because you're wearing an absolutely gorgeous sari, and there's a huge, nice personal story behind it, which I think all of us should listen to because it's something that I'm sure all of us can relate with.
I wear a sari to work every day, and they all belong to my mother or my grandmother. And when I go to work, I feel the power of generations of women before me. I just talk about this sari since you asked.
Yeah.
So my grandmother had gone and bought a sari and she loved it, but it was kind of wearing out. So she went and she went regularly for 2 months to a weaver and re-wove the sari, and that is the sari that I'm wearing. And she thought she was a little bit of a designer, so instead of the traditional maroon and red, she put in a green band over there, which we don't
That makes it absolutely
really
modern
see.
as well.
Yeah, so I think that hearing her or hearing people tell the story of the product also adds value to the product and makes you understand how important it is, which is not just the cost of the yarn or the dye. It's much more than that.
Yeah. I think the emotional connect that a lot of us have with the clothes that we wear is something that makes it so special and something which, money can't buy it, I'm sure. Joanne, I mean, you are an architect, a coder, and a designer. Wow. But currently you're working as an assistant professor, and that's something that really interests me because you're actually working with the future generation who are creating concepts about sustainable fashion. So tell us, I mean, is there a future for this, and how do you see the future for sustainable fashion?
I think, as you said, I think the cross-disciplinarity of the approach to fashion, and personally I can speak of that because I was never trained as a fashion designer. I came to it because I was passionate about it, but initially I was trained as an architect, and same for coding as well. So it allows us maybe to rethink the industry or the mechanisms behind it and approach it with a maybe fresher eye, and that's something we try to do at the university as well, where designers are invited not only to design clothes but design the systems behind it, right? All the way to the traceability, to know where the material came from and what impact does it have. And sometimes by let's say creating one product as fashion, you're also solving another issue that we're facing currently, like waste management, like overconsumption, and etc.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Ingrid, can you tell us exactly in what way you brought your background in the corporate world into this new, not new world, I would say, into this world of craft and arts?
In some instances, some of the craftspeople that I'm working with have been 8 or 9 or even 12 generations doing the same work. And it's only being passed down from father to son or mother to daughter or within the family. And a single piece of item that you might wear, it could be a stole or a jacket like you're wearing, something like that might take them a month collaboratively, right? 3 or 4 members of the family all working together to produce that. Now, when people know that story and they know the depth of heritage that's gone into producing that item, it's a very, very different connect with that product, and you don't buy it just for the moment, right?
Yes.
It can never become fast fashion. It's going to be something that you will treasure and possibly even give on to either the next generation or somebody else in your family, right? So that is really what I'd like to get to. And the way, to your question, the way I'm using my corporate experience is bringing in the systems thinking, it's bringing in all the process management, it's trying to get, craftspeople who are completely passionate but working with heart. I'm trying to bring in a little bit of the mind there, so that we can sort of balance the two. I don't want to lose the technique, but we definitely want to innovate on the form, we definitely want to innovate on the design, making these same items appealing to a modern contemporary audience.
Everybody thinks sustainable fashion is so expensive. Why should we shell out so much of money for something? And you might actually find a prettier jacket for quarter the price. So how would you make the push for sustainable fashion in that context?
I think there are two parts to that. One is the price that you pay for, let's say, an average t-shirt or an average jacket is typically not the real price of that item, right? The cost that those producing that on the environment, on a supply chain, on the delivery mechanisms that are bringing it to that point are very often not computed in the cost of that item.
Yes.
So that's one thing, and there should be an awareness around that. But I think the other part of it is, again, going back to instead of buying 5 items off a shelf, if I feel a deep connect with something, I'd rather pay the price of those 5 items for the single item that
yes.
I feel a strong connect with. And I feel the sense of purpose, and I know that it's coming from a community that's worked on it, and it becomes something that it could become an heirloom. So then it's priceless. Then you're
Yes.
not looking at one t-shirt versus one nice t-shirt.
Coming to you, Nandita, again, we had a very interesting conversation about data analysis and how that can kind of help in the way the supply chain works. So could you elaborate on that?
In today's day and age, technology can make a very big difference. Brands and organizations are making decisions based on hard data. And I think that getting the supply chain cleaner, more efficient, and more environmentally friendly is something that is important. I'd like to give an example of the Kering Group, which runs Gucci, Bottega, etc. They make cashmere shawls, and they collaborated with wildlife organizations and health organizations to really help the shepherds in the Mongolian region to comb the hair easier, to sort the hair easier, and they were doing a really good job of it. Then they brought in Stanford and NASA, and through using data, identifying that which are the parts, where should the shepherd take the goats to graze.
Yes.
So that the soil doesn't get desertified as it is. So what I'm trying to say is that it's not just all soft and love. We're all living in a world, and clothing and fashion is something that's extremely important, and some organizations are making very intelligent, intentful decisions, and also making sustainable fashion that way.
Yes, I think that's really good to know. And talking about technology, Joanne, I mean, as in, we hear a lot about how huge, I think it's mainly the big fashion brands have ventured into NFTs. So what do you see the trend for this in the future, and how can you ensure something like that is sustainable?
Fashion is embracing the digital on all levels, being across the supply chain for traceability using blockchain, or with some fashion weeks that have shifted online as a consequence of COVID, or digital fabrication as a tool to reduce waste and to get to more efficient and more sustainable methods of production. as well as, for instance, augmented reality for trying some clothes, right, that avoids the shipping cost. It is about slowing down, but it is about also making smarter decisions so that we can continue to impact positively the growth of an economy, but a green economy that, on social and environmental levels, through the use of innovation and technology. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So coming to it, I mean, Ingrid, when you speak about craftsmen and about the artisans, how do we ensure that in this kind of an atmosphere or a market where people have the money to spend actually, how do you ensure that the money actually reaches the people who are putting in the actual physical work into it?
So it's a really interesting question because it has such far-reaching impact. I think one is certainly to have the awareness, right? So we talked about a little bit about the narrative. Not many people know that what goes into some of these fine crafts. The other aspect of that is the availability of those fine crafts, because over the last, let's say, 10 or 15 years particularly, there has been so little money going into the fineness of the craft that people have taken, the craftspeople have taken, for the sake of their own sustenance, have taken the shortest route out. But it's a real economic issue because the younger generations don't want to go into a craft that they don't see making them money, right? And there are so many other opportunities for them to make money. And kudos to them. So it's a fine line to trod, right? You do want people to progress and to move on and choose careers of their own sort of interests. Of course you do. But at the same time, you don't want the craft to die, right?
Yes.
So one of the other aspects is how do you document those crafts? And it's not just remain a word of mouth passed on within the families. How do you document it? So that's the other thing. And
Absolutely.
the third is how do you create the market channels to say, okay, here's this artisan that's producing something phenomenal, but the buyer is not next door, right? And very often they're not even anywhere in that area. The buyer is thousands of miles away. How do you create that connect?
I went testimonying to the Louvre.
Oh, yes, yes.
And I just want to read something out which was next to masks, and it says, and I think what I want to say really is that it's not just about making fashion sustainable, that is important, but it's an opportunity to use fashion to influence sustainability in all other areas. Ambika was saying that fashion is a very powerful tool. Fashion is contagious. Anything somebody who's considered to be in fashion does, other people want to follow. So really this is an opportunity that if we think sustainability is important, it's an opportunity to use fashion to influence the mindset of our society, young people, and we have to be smart also about what we do that. But yes, this could be a very powerful tool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where the awareness comes from. I think it's not just enough that probably celebrities wear sustainable fashion, that I think there's a difference that each one of us can make. And having said that, I'd also like to point out that each of the ladies out here is wearing something sustainable, which they'll speak about now. Oh yeah, Nandita has already given us a beautiful story about her sari, but I think even Joanne is wearing something which is sustainable.
What I find fascinating about the field of sustainable fashion, like we were saying, it could be a paradox, like it's all about consumption, but we want to make it sustainable, and how. But in fact, if we look beneath the product and into the story behind it, of the material that traveled, that how it was grown and brought in, or recycled, or upcycled and removed from landfills, or the story of the person who made it, and that's something we try to do in our products as well. We write, the name of the person who crafted it, and there's that connection and that traceability. Or the material, like for example at the university we're growing materials. Our students are exploring how to make it, out of their kitchen waste, for instance. And so I would say, yeah, anything around us can become fashion, and that's if we embrace the beauty that's lying in our everyday, even the mundane, that we take for granted but that we waste, we can turn it into something we can cherish. Yeah, if we put enough attention.
That's lovely, yes. And if you had to give the audience one bit of advice from each one of you on how you can start leading a more sustainable life, fashionable life from tomorrow, what would it be?
It helps to slow down first a little bit and to embrace, pay attention to details and appreciate them. And maybe also re-cherish something we took for granted, but in fact sometimes we twist something and we re-appreciate it.
Yes.
I would say, yeah, it's the little things in fact that can make a difference.
Okay. What about you, Ingrid?
So I would say make fashion timeless and buy with intent and buy with a sense of purpose. I think some brands have been doing a good job of that already. Some luxury brands have been doing a good job of that. So Patek Philippe, for example, right? So you never really own a Patek Philippe, you're only holding it for your next generation.
Yeah, the ad has worked very well.
Hasn't it? Hasn't it?
Yeah.
So there is that sentiment with the consumers.
True,
We
yes.
just need to build on that.
Okay, absolutely. Just to conclude, everybody has this impression that, fashion is pretty frivolous. I think people who are out of this industry kind of dismiss anything that you say, saying that, fashion doesn't make the world go round, does it? But I'd like to say that, fashion may not exactly make the world go round, but unless you pull up your ecological socks or put on your organic cap, there might not be a world around for us to go around in right now. And I think that's a point that each one of us needs to remember.
Be inspired. Festival of Ideas. An innovation can change the world. All we need is passion, focus, and a desire to help. If you have an innovation, please send it to us at whatever stage it is in. Our panel of experts will assess it and help propel it towards reality. The sky is your limit. Don't wait. Mail us your idea or innovative thought at beinspired@teamworkarts.com.